Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to today's program, Introduction to the Birding for Teens. My name is Cecilia Liu. I'm the head of Young Adult Service at Levittown. So I have just a few things to go over before today's program. First of all, we are going to record the program, and the recorded program will be available at the Levittown's website. And we will also have a Q&A session for today's program. So please keep your question at the very end. So Tony will answer your question. Before the workshop begins, I'm so pleased to introduce today's speaker, Tony Yovino, and Tony is the Assistant Director for Community Services at Oceanside Library. And he is a man with multiple professions and wisdom. He's an author, attorney, and a community leader. Tony is a resident of Rockville Center. He has received numerous recognition for his community service and his work within the literary community, including having been named a Long Islanders of the Week by Newsday in 2011 and Citizen of the Year by Oceanside Chamber of Commerce. He's a recipient of the Community Service Award from the Long Island Writers Guild and the Make a Difference Award from the town of Hempstead, and was honored by United New Yorkers for choices in education. Tony is a native Long Islander. He is a graduate of the University of Richmond and St. John's University School of Law. He was recently named a Legal Eagle by Long Island Post magazine and is the lead litigation partner in the Garden City law firm. Tony has served on the boards of a number of nonprofit organizations and was elected trustee on the Oceanside Board of Education. Now, I'm pleased to hand the presentation over to Tony.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for that nice introduction. I appreciate it. So here's the deal. I went to law school. I am a lawyer, but now for the last 5 years, in addition to being a lawyer, I'm the assistant director at Oceanside. But I have to tell you, it was in July of 8 years ago, July of 2012, that I discovered birding, and it has been a blast. I have absolutely loved it, and I hope that you come away today with some interest in it as well. And so I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll take it from there and start my slideshow. So this is an introduction to birding that I am presenting to you. And so let's talk a little bit about why birds, okay? Why do we care about birds? Well, first of all, they're all around us, okay? So we see birds just pretty much everywhere we go, right? They are all around us. They're constant. And what I mean by constant is, these are birds that I know that you've seen. You've all seen a cardinal. The red one, the bright red one is the male cardinal. The lighter buff one is the female cardinal. Well, they're called northern cardinals. And a northern cardinal looks like a northern cardinal, looks like a northern cardinal, looks like a northern cardinal. And it's not like people where we all look a little bit different. The mallards, the ducks that are on the bottom there. A mallard looks like a mallard, looks like a mallard. The house sparrows, the same thing. The American goldfinches. They all look the same. So it means that you can identify them when you start looking at them. And once you know what a northern cardinal looks like, you'll be able to see it all the time. Same thing with this herring gull and the robin and the black-capped chickadee. They're beautiful, okay? They're beautiful. This is an egret. That's a Blackburnian warbler. I took that picture down in Florida. That's a great gray owl. Now that owl is huge, and they're only found up in the Arctic. I was in northern Minnesota in February of, I think it was 2014. It was minus 15 degrees, and I watched that owl leap from that tree and go crashing down into the snow and came up with a mouse. This is an egret. I'm sorry, this is an ibis, a white ibis from down in Florida. And I took all of those. And there's a correct number. Now here's important. Let's say you say, listen, I want to start studying, I want to learn about, let's say, bears. Well, there's only 3 kinds of bear in North America. So once you've seen a brown bear, once you've seen a grizzly bear, and whatever, I guess a black bear, once you've seen those 3 bears, that's it. You've seen them all. So you say, well, okay, so I want something a little more challenging. So let's say fungi, right? Like mushrooms and things like that. Well, there's 5.1 million of them, okay? So you're going to spend an entire lifetime looking at fungi, and you're not going to come anywhere near seeing them all. So what do I like about birds? Because in North America, which as far as birding world is concerned, is the United States and Canada, there's 635 species of bird that live here all the time. And then there's a few hundred others that get blown in by storms. They get blown in from Europe, or they get blown in from Asia, or they get blown up from Central America. But there's 635. That sounds like a lot, but it's a manageable number. You can wind up seeing a lot of them, but you're not looking at 5.1 million. They're fun to watch. Okay. Now, whether you're out there looking around in the mountains, or you're looking at the park, or you're looking in your backyard, birds are fun to watch. They're always active. They're always doing stuff, and they fly. How cool is that? They fly. Something we've always wanted to do. Humans have been able to do it for about the last 100 years or so, but you still have to get into a big plane to do it. And they just jump off of a branch and they're gone. So what do you need to be able to bird? Now, here's the difference between birding and bird watching. Bird watching is fine. Bird watching is what you do when you sit your chair up in your backyard and you watch what comes into your backyard, maybe at your feeder. Okay. But birding is an active thing. I've climbed mountains to go look at birds. I climbed a Hawk Mountain in Pennsylvania and sat on granite rock as I watched thousands of hawks coming up over the mountain ridge in the distance and coming flying over. I've been on a boat 40 miles off the coast of North America looking at all kinds of albatrosses and seabirds. I've been down in the Everglades. I've been all over. But you know where some of the most fun places have been? Right here in Nassau County, down at the beach, down at Hempstead Lake Park, up at Centerport, in your own backyard. Okay, so birding can take you all kinds of places, or you can be anywhere and see birds. And the thing is, and I'll go into it, as you go to different parts, as you go to different areas, you're going to see different birds. So what do you need? You need your ears. Okay. There's some people that can pick out birds based upon their song. I'm not really good at it. I can't carry a tune. I can't sing at all. So I wonder whether that has something to do with it or not. I haven't seen anything in particular, but I can hear a bird song, and so that I know that there's a bird up in that tree. So I'm going to go look to see what bird that is in the tree. You need your eyes. That's probably the biggest thing, is that you need to be able to see so that you can identify the birds, because there's going to be some birds that are going to be a little bit different and just small changes. And that's how you're going to differentiate between one type of bird and another. You need your mind. This is the great part about this. There's so much to learn, but you learn it in little bits. You learn it as you need it. So it's not like you're sitting down and studying. Okay, it's not math. You look and you go, well, why? What do I need to know about that bird? Oh, I just saw a bird that I didn't know, but it has like a little bit of yellow here. And then you're looking and you're seeing, it's like being a detective. Being a birder is being a detective. Okay, it's if you like puzzles, that's what birding is. Okay, binoculars. Now, you're going to need binoculars, mostly because that's going to be able to bring you close. What happened was the first birders, like Audubon, okay, you've heard of Audubon, they went out and shot birds. Okay, that's the only way they could see them up close. So they would shoot them and then go get them, and then they would look at them. So it's kind of funny. It's also hit some of the names. For instance, the red-bellied woodpecker only has a little dot of red, and a lot of times it's covered on its belly by other feathers. The reason why it got it was because after they shot one and they looked at it, they pushed around the feathers and they saw this red dot in the middle of it. So it said, oh, it's a red-bellied woodpecker. So it's kind of strange how that goes, but now with binoculars we can see all over. And you're going to need a field guide. Now there's a million different kinds of field guides, and what a field guide is, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a second so I can show you something. Okay. So what field guides are, They look kind of like this, and they come in all shapes and sizes. They're bigger and smaller. But field guides have all the birds in them. Some use photographs, some use paintings. Okay, that was how they all were. But every field guide follows the same pattern. So every group of bird comes in the same exact order, and then all of the birds, all of the different species within that go in the same order. So whenever you pick up one of these field guides, they will all have a quick pattern for you to pick up. And each of the field guides is a little bit different, but they all basically have the same kind of a thing. They'll show you pictures of the birds. They'll give you a description. Some of them will give you more descriptions about what you need to look for to identify that particular bird. And they'll all have this range map that I'm talking about. Okay, they all have this range map. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Let's see. Okay, so then what do you need? Okay, and then the field guides, as I said, they have the families, then the species, they'll have photos and pictures, parts markings, and range map. So for instance, this is the range map for a herring gull. Now, you probably have all been to the beach, okay, or certainly to a parking lot, and you've seen gulls. A lot of people call them seagulls. Well, there's no such thing as a seagull. They're all different kinds of gulls. The thing is, I guarantee you that you've seen probably about 4 or 5 different species of gulls, but didn't realize it. And I'll talk about that in a second. But these herring gulls, which are bright white, and they have this little red dot on their beak, they're found all throughout North America. But when you look at a range guide, here's what it tells you. The purple area is where they live all year round. Okay? They live there all year round. The blue is where they live in the winter. Okay? So will you see herring gulls here on Long Island in the winter? Absolutely, because they live here all year round. The yellow is only when there's migration, so that's typically March and April. And then the breeding area, typically for most birds, is in the summer. So what does that mean? So that means that if you live in South Dakota and you see a gull, pretty much can tell you it's not a herring gull, because they don't live there during the winter. They live down further down south. If you're in Florida and it's July, you're not going to see a herring gull, because herring gulls are only around there in the winter. And so this kind of gives you a good idea about the birds as you're going through. Now, there are some great apps, okay, and free apps. Audubon has an app. iBird has an app. Peterson's and birding software. There's all kinds of birding software where people keep track of what birds they've seen. You keep counts of how many birds you've seen. But one of the cool things are these 3 sites: Whatbird, All About Birds, and eBirds. So now Whatbird is really cool, and hopefully it will come up here as I do this. Okay, and it does. All right. So here's what happens. I've seen a bird. Okay, let's pick a bird that we all know. Let's say I've seen a northern cardinal. I've seen a cardinal. We've all seen cardinals, right? Red cardinals. Okay, but I've never seen it before. I don't know what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to look at these basic things, and I'll say, all right, a common location. Well, I'm going to assume that it's common, so I'm going to say I'm here in New York. So I'll click New York. Now we start out with 966 birds. But once I click New York, look at that. It drops it down to 313 birds. I hope you all can see that. All right, so now I look at it and I go, what's the shape of that bird? Okay, and look at the choices you have of birds. So now we know that it doesn't look like a hummingbird, and we know that a cardinal doesn't look like a chicken marsh. We know it doesn't look like a duck or a long-legged bird. It looks more like a perching bird, right? I think that's kind of where we're going to be. So we'll say that. But maybe I'm saying, well, you know what? Maybe it looks like a tree clinging type. I don't really know too much about it, so I'll pick those 2. All right. So now what it does is it knocks it down to 148. Now size. Okay, I'll look at size. Is it very small, 3 to 5 inches? Is it very large? I can rule those 2 out, and it's not the size of a duck. So I'll say that it's small. Now look where we're getting down to. Now I'm down to 100. Now color prominent. So now I look at the color, and it gives me all these choices. And I'm going to say, right, it's red, isn't it? So I click on red. And now it gives me these 5 choices. And this will let me now go to an icon. And so now I can look and I can say, well, it was all red, so I'm going to knock this one out. And it's not a woodpecker. I'm going to knock this one out. And maybe it's between these two, but this is the one that I like. And so that's how you go. And that's why I say you're being a little bit of a detective. And then it will give you the northern cardinal, and it will show you about it. So that's how that what bird works. And it's, like I said, I think it's really cool. So I'm going to shut that down and come back here. All About Birds is put out by Cornell University. Cornell University does a great job about doing the thing. So now, if you know what bird you're looking for, so now I'm going to look for northern cardinal. I want to learn more about northern cardinals. And so I'll come here, and what it will do is it will give me identification information. I can play the song for it. It will show me where they live. Now look at northern cardinals. They live here all year round. But if you're out in Cardinal, you won't see a cardinal living in California or in Oregon or Nevada. And then you can learn what they eat, where they nest, what their habitat is, and it gives you all kinds of cool information, cool facts, things like that. And sometimes they'll give you this to show that. So that gives us some really great information. eBird is even the coolest thing. eBird is the best. Here's what happens. Every single day, people go out birding all across the United States, all across the world. And if you're a birder, you usually have an account with eBird, and you upload your sightings for the day. So you can say, I went out in my backyard and I saw a cardinal and I saw a grackle, and you put them in. And then they put all of those together, and they create these maps. So I can put here Nassau County. Nassau County, whoops, would help if I could spell, right, guys? Nassau County, New York. Did you know there was a Nassau County in Florida? Okay, so there's a Nassau County, New York. And this will tell me all of the different species that have been seen in all years. But I want to know, what has anybody seen this year? Okay, and that'll show me everything that has been seen in Nassau County this year. And so I can find everything. So for instance, what I usually do is, if I'm going to go on a trip someplace, even if I'm just going to go visit a relative, I'll put in their address and I'll see what kind of birds other people have been seeing around there. So for instance, this Matt Klein went out, and yesterday he saw a bald eagle. Okay, and we can see where he saw it and everything else. It's an amazing tool that we use. So types of birders or types of birding. So there's the backyard birding that we talked about. That's like bird watching. It's pretty cool. And then there's where you can go around and learn about all the local birds, and you try to see as many birds as you can and learn about the birds that live in your area. And then you can travel, okay? Like I said, I've been down to Florida, I've been to California, I've been to Minnesota. I even took a trip, and I flew into Missouri, and I birded in Missouri, and then I went down into Arkansas, and then I went across to Oklahoma, came up to Kansas, and then wound up at a birding festival, believe it or not. 200 people from 26 states came to the spot in Nebraska to look at these particular birds, these sandhill cranes, who come from Florida, or actually from Texas, and they go up to Canada, and they stop in this one spot of Nebraska every year for about 2 or 3 weeks, 500,000 of them in a very small area. When they come to land at night, they blacken the sky. It's so cool. So you can travel, okay? There's also listers. There's people that try to see, and they check off, okay, when they've seen a bird. So I can tell you that, I've seen about 380, I think it's 383 different species of bird. Okay, so I'm not a really good birder, but I'm an enthusiastic one. I like it. So you can keep lists. So people keep lists. Then there's competitive birding. Now this is really cool. There are contests. They're called the big year. And a big year is when you try to see as many species as you can in a particular area in a year. The big contest is to see the most birds in North America in 1 year. That's called the big year. And now the reason why I'm telling you that especially is because that's how I got started birding. I saw a movie. Saw the movie called The Big Year with Jack Black Owen Wilson and Steve Martin and Angelica Houston. A funny, funny, true story about three guys who tried to break the record. And if this works, I just don't know. Let me know if the sound doesn't come through. Okay, I don't know whether I'm able to share the sound on this platform. So just let me know. Okay. Okay. So I understand that you couldn't hear that, and I apologize. I'm an old man. I'm still trying to figure out all this technology. Okay. So, but anyway, so it's a great movie, and I highly recommend it. So, all right. Now, how do you identify birds? Well, first of all, you identify them by sight. Okay. We look for them. Then we look at their shape and their posture. Okay. Some birds sit straight up. Some birds lean over. Okay. Some are shaped like a duck, right? They look like water birds. So these are the basic shapes of birds. There are some that are gull-like, some that are duck-like. So there's some that look like owls and hawks. Okay, and every bird that you see will fit into one of these 15 categories. So that starts you right away. Then we look at size. Okay, as when I said before that a cardinal is a cardinal is a cardinal is a cardinal. You know, we have human beings that are 5'3", and then we have guys that are 7'1". You don't have that with birds. Every cardinal is going to be the same size. Every eagle is going to be the same size. You're not going to see a 3-inch eagle. They don't make them. Okay, so size is important. The color. Okay, the flight pattern. For instance, woodpeckers, they fly in kind of an undulating. They fly like up and down. Kind of thing. Swallows that are really fast. They have usually a pointed tail. They catch mosquitoes and other things in the air. They fly and they bank. They're so fast. And then we look for markings. Okay, and there's all different kinds of markings that birds have. So, for instance, okay, so now here, this is a common house sparrow, and what we would look at is the beak. Now, if you look even at some of these other birds that are on my thing, the shape of the beak of the gull and the shape of the beak of these birds are different than the cone-shaped. Okay, that's called the cone shape. The head, we look at the head, we look at the coloring on the head. All right, like again, I'll tell you, every house sparrow will have the brown in the same place. They'll have the white cheek. They'll have the gray on the top of the head. We look at the throat color because birds, even when they're sometimes close, their throat color will be different. We look at the color of their belly. We look at their wings, how their wings are marked. We look at the eyes. Sometimes you have eyes that have a ring around them. Sometimes they have like a little eye line, it looks like. And we look at the legs and the color of the legs. So those are all things that we use. Now, for instance, these are two birds. Now, this picture happens to have them side by side. Okay, then these are two egrets. The one on the right is a great egret, and the one on the left is a snowy egret. So what do we have here? If you look, even though generally they look similar, they're different in size. Okay, now can they access the chat? Can they do chat? So if anybody wants to throw into the chat, let's see. If anybody wants to throw in the chat, tell me what some differences you see between these two birds. Okay. Anybody want to throw in something into the chat? What do you see different? The leg color, yeah, that's a good one. The snowy egret has yellow feet. Anybody else? Okay. How about the beak? How about the beak color? Right? One is yellow and one is black. So those are the kinds, and one has a fish. That's very true. One is holding a fish. So those are the kinds of things that we do look for. And so you know, as we talk through it, and we saw that the legs. So those are good catches there, guys. So now, what is America's bird? All right. Now, we all know that America's national bird is what? It's the eagle, right? Okay, and this is an eagle that I saw in Minnesota, and I was all by myself, and he was all by himself, and we sat in probably for about 15 or 20 minutes with me looking up at him and him looking down at me. It was pretty cool. So yeah, the America's bird. Benjamin Franklin thought that America's bird should be the turkey. He said that the eagle was nothing more than a glorified vulture, and that the turkey should be the American. It showed the spirit. They're one of the most fighting birds. They're pretty nasty, actually, when they're wild. But I'll tell you which bird that I think it is. I think it should be the European starling. You've all seen the European starling. It is the most popular bird in the country. And they all started from 12 birds that were brought here in the 1880s to do a Shakespeare festival in Central Park. This is a British bird. And the director of that play, who was doing Shakespeare in the Park in Central Park in the 1880s, said, I want to have some of the birds that were around in Shakespeare's time. So he brought 12 of them in here. He brought 12 house sparrows, those little house sparrows that you see all over the place. Same thing. Now, why do I say this is America's bird? Well, first of all, it lives everywhere. It lives in the desert. It lives in the swamps. It lives in the cities. It lives in the suburbs. It lives on farms. You can find it everywhere. There's no place in America that you can't find this bird. And it started, and there's over 200 of them, 200 million plus. And it all started in 1891. I said 1884, it was 1891, with 0, okay? And what is that very much like? Okay, we had no Europeans in America in 1620. Now we have 320 million, probably more people coming from all different places, okay? And took over the whole country, took over the whole, every area. So that's why I say the European starling, I think, is really America's bird. I think it's more like us. Now, where can you bird on Long Island? You can bird in your backyard. We have a great marine studies center here in Oceanside that you can come visit. We have it you can go to Jones Beach, Hempstead Lake Park, Massapequa has a wonderful preserve. I guarantee you that there's parks and places around you that are good. Certainly down at the beach is really cool, because down at the beach you can wind up seeing a lot of different birds. So now the main rules of birding. First big one is respect. You got to respect other people's property. Okay, you don't go on other people's property unless you're invited. You respect other birders. Okay, you don't try to get into anybody's way. You don't cause any problems. And mostly you respect the birds. You don't, if you know that there's a bird in a bush that you really want to see, you don't throw like a rock or a can or something in there to make the bird fly away. You don't do that. You respect the birds. My favorite story on that is I was birding at a sewage treatment plant outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. And why are sewage treatment plants great places to see birds? Because they attract a lot of bugs. And where there's bugs, there's birds. So I'm doing that, and I came along this long stretch of a fence, and on one side of the fence was the sewage treatment, and on the other side was the desert, and there's a big long chain link fence, and I had to go from one side to the other. It was about 100 yards. And as I'm starting to go, out pops a greater roadrunner. A roadrunner looks just like the cartoon, pops out about 20 feet or 30 feet in front of me. So I have my camera, I take a bunch of pictures, and now I'm waiting because I don't want to scare the bird. I don't want to make him fly away. But after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I had an appointment. I had to get to the other side. So I took a step, just one step towards the bird, and he took a step away from me. And I took another step, and the roadrunner took another step. And we kept doing that, and I realized I was doing a slow motion chase of a roadrunner. I was waiting for the Acme anvil to come flying down, or for a coyote on a rocket to come flying past me. But you have to respect the birds. Okay, so these are some birds that I guarantee you that you've seen that be in your yard. There's the robin. Okay, it's actually called an American robin. There are other kinds of robins, and their big thing obviously is the reddish orange breast. And you'll also see that they all have this white circle around their eye. This is a house sparrow. This is one of the other birds that was brought here in 1891, and it's the same thing. This is the male. It's got that gray cap. It's got the black on the chest and the throat, and so that's a house sparrow. A house finch. You may see these. They have a little red on them, so they're not as red as a cardinal. They're a little bit bigger than a regular sparrow. Okay, and there's a house finch. The one on the left is a male, the one on the right is a female. But they're very common around here. The European starlings that I talked about, right? They have that shiny and all the spots all over them. Okay, they have a lot of cool spots all up and down them. The herring gull that I talked about, that's the one that has the little red on the beak, and it's all in white. But then there's also the ring-billed gull, okay? And sometimes they're together. So when you go to the beach next time, take a look, and they have the black ring around their bill, and they have a little red in the eye as well, and they have this black tail with these white spots. Pretty cool. Rock pigeon, okay, we've all seen those pigeons. Well, those really come from the mountains, okay? They kind of made their way down into the cities and suburbs because that's where the food is. But rock pigeons really come from the mountains and from cliffs, rocks. And when you see them out in their natural habitat, they're really, really pretty. They're really cool. There's mourning doves. That's different than a pigeon, okay? They'll typically make that sound, okay, the little cooing sound. Okay, those are mourning doves. Then we have an American crow. Okay, there's a similar bird that starts living upstate, and this is where that territory line comes in. That's larger, that's called a raven. It looks very similar. Okay, so you have an American crow. Then we have a common grackle. Now, some people get these mixed up, okay? Sometimes if you're looking outside, you'll say, oh, it's a black bird, and it might be a European starling, so you gotta look a little bit closer. It might be a crow, okay? Or it might be these grackles, these common grackles. Common grackles are really cool. When I was a kid, we used to call them oil birds because they've got this really shiny, kind of oily feathers and things, and they have these bright yellow eyes. They're really cool. Common grackles. Northern cardinals, we've talked about those. Blue jays. Now, one of the fun things about blue jays, and this is where sometimes when you become a birder, you kind of start getting, blue jays are only found in the east of the United States. They're not found out in California. So there was a Big Bang episode where Sheldon lets in a blue jay, except they don't have blue jays out there. Where they have a bird that's very similar, it's called a stellar jay, where you see wherever there's white on this bird, pretty much all of that is black. Okay, and where you see the black, it's pretty much white. So it's just, I mean, it's a really cool looking bird, but it's not a blue jay. They don't have them out there. So I don't know where Sheldon found his blue jay, but it wasn't there in California. Mallards are the most common of ducks, and you see the male has the green, and you see the female has the streak by the eye. And the reason why that's important is that there are other ducks male ducks that look a lot like the female mallard, okay? So the way you basically tell the difference is a little bit about the shape of the bill and then also the eye line. So, and then osprey. Now, osprey, you're only gonna find down at the beach. I hope that you've ever seen one. They were almost extinct, okay? We used back in the 1950s and 60s, they used a chemical called DDT. And what would happen is the DDT was meant to kill mosquitoes, pretty much. And then what happened was small birds ate those mosquitoes that were now poisoned, and they became poisoned. And then these larger birds, like the osprey and the eagle, started eating the poisoned birds and were dying off left and right. There was less than 1,000 osprey left in the world. But we banned DDT, and we helped with their habitat, and now the osprey have come back very, very strong. They're all over the place down, primarily by the water. But they're really, really cool. A little bit fierce looking. They make these huge, huge, huge nests. I mean, these nests are 10 feet in diameter. But they are really cool. And then we have great egrets, again, down by the beach. Very graceful. And the great blue heron, the old man of the birds, okay? And again, down by the beach mostly. So these are some of the birds that you can actually see that are around, and that's what you do. So my suggestion is you certainly can take a guidebook out from the library, or you can use one of those websites, and it's a great way to start kind of checking off what birds that you see in the area. And you can start with your own backyard. Now that we're doing walks and you're staying socially distant, you can go see more birds. The other great thing about doing birds is that you don't have to go place special. You don't have to go up into the mountains, and you don't have to go out into frozen bogs and looking at birds in minus 15 degrees. You can do it pretty much anywhere. Birds like the edges, okay? Birds like to be able to sit in a tree or in a bush dart out to get their food and come back for protection. So sometimes when you go to a place, let's say the next time that you go to Eisenhower Park, the parking lot is usually a really good place to see birds because they'll kind of hang out on the outskirts and then, like I say, dive out, grab their food and get back in. So that's I'm hoping that that going forward that you guys will enjoy birds or be just a little bit more noticeable of them. When you go down to the beach next time, you'll see like the difference between gulls and other birds. The gulls will kind of swoop in like this, and then the terns are a little bit sleeker and they hover and then they dive. And so when you go down to, especially when down to the beach, you're going to see dozens and dozens and dozens of birds. You're going to start seeing birds that you're going to say, I've seen this bird all along. I didn't know what this bird was. So be a little bit of a detective. If you like doing puzzles, birding is for you. All right, thank you. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.